Horizon on the Hudson teacher Richard Desiderio, who was the whistleblower in the attendance fudging scandal involving Newburgh Free Academy student-athletes, has been suspended for a fourth time since 2016. A letter from Superintendent Dr. Jacqueline Manning Campbell said he's on administrative paid leave pending further investigation. The letter, dated September 5th, states no reason for the latest suspension. This is his story.
You've been marked as a whistleblower.
Yes.
And it's for that reason, with multiple different things happening, that you believe is why you're being targeted. And in fact, tell us, you just went to school to start the new school year, and what happened?
When I showed up for the first day of school, I was sent to Human Resources for a sloppily put together meeting that did not happen. Was told to come back, so I went back to the school building, worked the rest of the day, and then received a letter sometime during the day being told to meet with Human Resources yesterday at 9 o'clock. When I got to Human Resources, I was told that I was being suspended from my teaching job. This would be the fourth suspension since 2016. I was given the choice to either go on paid administrative leave and nothing would be sent to the Board of Education and nothing would be made public, or I would be suspended and the suspension would be made public and sent to the Board of Education. I chose to be suspended because I want the public to know exactly what's going on.
And if I may say, it all stems from the fact that you feel like an ombudsman for the students. And whenever you hear of a situation where a child has been wronged, you go to bat for them and then report it to the administration. And I get the feeling they don't like that.
Well, let me correct one thing, because I think this needs to be said. I've been doing this a long time. I grew up, a street smart kid. So no, not every time a kid has been wronged. But if I do some type of looking into it or investigation, for lack of better terms, and it seems as though it is highly credible, then I'm going to leave no one stone unturned to make sure that I am there and I pursue justice or a positive outcome for a kid. It's impossible for me to walk away. This is where I started. Where everything started was back in 2015 when I uncovered the attendance irregularities, whatever you want to call them. It's documented in a 100-page district attorney report written by David Hoovler, where I stumbled on it, and it was a point where I realized that I could not turn away from it and leave it alone.
And this, for those who may not remember it, was a situation of fudging student attendance records so that they would be eligible to play organized sports.
Correct. That was the legal issue, but from a humanity issue, from a educator's perspective, the conclusion that I came to is that we had catastrophic attendance issues across the board, across all races, creeds, religions, colors. What became obvious to me, and which no one has ever argued with me about, is that our most vulnerable kids, our poor kids, because it's really was not a racial issue per se. It was a class issue. It was a poverty issue. Our kids, coming from high levels of poverty, were not receiving a proper education. There were other, obviously, legal things that David addressed. I was that 100-page report I worked on with them for a year and a half. It was my testimony that was the driving force. I was the first witness to go before the grand jury. So I, for all intent and purpose, was the voice on there. There were others, but it started with me, and I was the primary voice. But it was bigger than just the illegal irregularities, which David addressed, from just being a human being. It was clear to me that we were giving kids diplomas that were not going to help them. And they were primarily our black and brown children who, needed to get that education as much or more than anybody, and we were not doing our jobs. No one's ever disputed that. No one's ever argued that. So where it started with me and where it ended are kind of two different places, but it was the touchstone to everything that has happened since. And yeah, I've paid a dear price. And the same people that were involved back then are still involved today. They've been there every step of the way. And yeah, I do believe my role in that original situation, which is fraught with irregularities that were never even in the DA report, because that DA report, if they put everything in there that went on, could have been 500 pages. And I'm not blowing smoke. You and I could sit here for 5 hours, because I have sat with investigators and going through just my stuff for 6 hours. So, yeah, and it continues. Obviously, right up to, I've been suspended. I didn't go to work today. It was the first day of school. I had parents reach out to me yesterday and say, oh my God, I'm not going to use the kid's name. He is so happy that you're his teacher, because I have kids this year on my roster that I've had in the past, that I have great relationships. I have great relationships with all the kids.
And I've read some of the letters from parents.
Yes.
About how much you've turned kids around and you've educated them, and they're totally different. They're disciplined now. They idolize you.
Yes.
And
yes.
Going back to the sports issue, you reported it to the DA said take it up with the state education department.
Correct.
They've done nothing with it.
And they've done nothing with this, because I've reported all of this present day stuff to the state ed department. I contacted the FBI. I contacted David Hoovler again. I leave no stone unturned. It's not about me. When I'm making those calls, understand that I was a high school teacher when the whole thing started. They decided, I think, to try and punish me, that's my opinion, to put me in elementary school. So now, for the last 5 years, I've been with little ones who aren't jaded, who still have gleam in their eyes. And it changed my whole life. Because when I was fighting for older kids, it's a different feeling. I've seen over the last 5 years what this city and what the school district is capable of. And we do reach it sometimes. But far too often, these kids are, if not destroyed, put seriously behind by things that we do. Last year was the best year I've ever had in teaching. It was also, by the end of the year, I was at my breaking point for two completely different reasons. Last year, I taught a special education self-contained class. Had kids that the year before, who I heard from several people, including their parents, were challenging. Let's put it that way. I had the best year of my life. My kids were happy. They learned. They danced. They sang. They felt welcomed. They felt safe. Everything, if I accuse somebody of something, or I put something out there, you can be guaranteed that I've done my work on that. The most recent issue that I reported, I had a similar circumstance that I dealt with, and I dealt with it the exact opposite way than the other teacher dealt with it. So I don't just get a megaphone and start talking about how people should live their lives. I live it. Okay? And that's when my anger starts to come in, my frustration, and I'm at a breaking point now where I don't have any fear anymore. If they fire me, so be it. I can't keep living like this. I received 6 disciplinary letters last year, and I literally was performing miracles in my classroom. I don't say that. I don't say that off, the top of my head. I'm talking about documented, sustainable miracles. I have 2 kids that were challenging, that have moved from a self-contained class into an integrated co-taught class. They went from the most restrictive to a much less restrictive, because that's where they belong.
So give us an idea of what these disciplinary charges have been in the past.
Sure. Well, I've received probably 40 of them since 2015, 2016. 98% of teachers go through their career without ever getting one. I've gotten about 40. I've been walked out of the building 4 times. Before this, I was accused of hitting a kid. And so when Mr. McLemore investigated, the kid was finally in tears, saying, "I never said Mr. D hit me."
And Mr. McLemore is the HR
the Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources.
Right.
Yes, and has been since this all began. He and Ed Forget are the constants that were involved then that are still involved today. Roberto Padilla is gone. Jason Simo is gone. They were key players in the beginning. They're gone. Forget and McLemore remain.
Now, this latest letter of suspension was signed by the new superintendent.
That is
Been
correct.
here about a year.
That's correct.
And what's your take on that? Is she getting information from people who've been here longer?
Since she's never spoken a word to me, I would assume so. I would assume she's talking to her Human Resources Department.
Now, you've gone to bat for a little girl who needed to go to the bathroom. Teacher wouldn't let her. She wound up wetting her pants.
That is
in
correct.
class. So I would imagine that she was embarrassed, possibly ostracized by other kids. So you went to bat for her and wrote a letter, and then what?
Then nothing. Again, I sent in a letter to Ed Forget, the deputy superintendent. Let me backtrack. The little girl told me. I didn't send a letter to Ed Forget based on the little girl telling me. I'm a lot smarter than that. Kids say things all the time. and I've been accused falsely, I am never going to do that to somebody else. She's a brother in the building. The brother came and told me. Again, I'm still not going and setting off alarm bells. I did tell the principals in the building. It was when I saw her mother right before Christmas. As I get emotional, you know, the look in the mother's eyes is something I cannot get out of my head. She looked alternately enraged and devastated to the point of wanting to sob when she told me, and then she went and met with the principal. That's when I started to take it to another level. I actually called CPS, had a great conversation with a CPS worker because I wasn't sure what to do. I get in trouble for everything I do, actually everything I don't do, so I don't, you know, I don't know, I'm never quite sure exactly what to do. I know what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to leave this kid, okay? The mother, you know the look. She was devastated. She was frustrated. She felt helpless. This is her child. It's her child. And I had worked with the teacher in question in the past, and she was famous for not letting the kids go to the bathroom. Bottom line, I was in the class. We taught an ICT class together. She'd tell him, wait. It's another piece of evidence that I had before I, brought in Ed Forget. I wrote a detailed letter that I will share with anyone, in which I laid out, it's 6 paragraphs long. It's not a, hey, Ed, you think you could look into this? It's detailed, not bullet points, but line by line, which I started in saying, I called CPS about this. That's my mandated job to do. I need your help. And basically, you could feel the desperation. I need you to help this kid, Ed. I need you to help this kid. I never affirmatively said it happened or it didn't happen. But here's everything that I found out. Sure sounds like it happened. Could you please do something? Remember, Mr. Gross, that I'm walked out of the building suspended pending investigation no matter what goes on. The teacher was not walked out of the building pending investigation. The kid stayed in that class until the last day of the year. She kept getting kicked out of the class for having a bad attitude. Thank you for shaking your head, because I need to see that sometimes. Because sometimes I live in a world of make-believe where nothing makes sense. And I know she was, because I had gone down into the office. And there were 2 times where I had to go pick up my disciplinary letter of the week or of the month, and she's sitting there. I'm not going to use her name. What happened? I got kicked out of class because I had a bad attitude. Well, I'd have a bad attitude if I was forced to soil myself. Yeah. When I say a little girl, Mr. Gross, I'm talking about a 6-year-old. This is 6 or 7 years old. Go ahead.
And this isn't the only case.
No, it is not.
You have hired lawyers out of your own pocket, right?
Yes.
And have...
But I've never sued the district.
Okay.
Never. Because I don't want them to be able to come back and say, oh, he's just trying to get money. I've had to hire lawyers to protect myself. I never filed a lawsuit against them, ever. And I won't.
Now, with this latest charge, you don't know what it's about?
I have no idea.
At what stage will they call you in?
I have no idea.
No idea.
Don't know, and I'll be quite honest with you, at this point, After 8 years, I don't care anymore. I'll stand on my truth. I'll stand on my record. Whatever happens, happens. Because I can't live. I never recovered over this summer. I got a letter up until the last day of school. Okay? This is while I'm being a shining light. I'm living out everything that they claim that they're about. I'm doing it on a daily basis. None of my kids' parents go to them. This is all stuff that they come up with.
Now, you showed me a letter where a young boy had disciplinary problems.
Correct.
Until he was wound up in your class. And
Correct.
He's the shining star of the class. And the mother wrote you a letter praising you, saying that you were...
Yeah.
You were tops.
Yes, she did. And I'm forever grateful. The last time, because I've had to file hostile work environment charges against people in the district on numerous occasions. It's the only resource I have sometimes. But in the last conversation I had in my most recent filing was I put the directives in front of her, and then I put that letter in front of her and said both of these things can't be happening at the same time. These directives portray me as a garbage, uncaring teacher. There's no other way to look at that. That letter portrays me as if I walk on water. You can't, both of those things can't be happening at the same time. It's impossible. So one of them's wrong. Yes.
There was another case you talked of where a little boy threatened to shoot a little girl on a school bus.
That's correct.
And that was brought into question, from what I understand, whether it really happened.
Well, the little girl from this incident that I just described was not my student. This little girl was not my student, but her class was kitty corner to mine. And I'm going to say this, I hope it doesn't sound like arrogance, but I'm beloved in my school by the kids. I have kids from every grade level that visit me in the morning and in the afternoon. And this girl who was just adorable. And please remember that my whole odyssey with the district started when I was the girls' basketball coach. That's what them being disrespected and being used as collateral damage to get after me is why this all started, why I went off the reservation to begin with. You want to fight me? We can fight. I'm a grown man. Whatever. We'll duke it out. I don't mean literally. Don't involve other people. This other girl was also not my student, but was constantly dropping him, waving from the window. Just a precocious, hysterical kid. The boy in question was in my class, okay? She came to me with her teacher, who wasn't tenured, so who was nervous, and said that the kid in my class threatened to bring a gun on the bus tomorrow and shoot her in the face and kill her. I didn't know that it had been brought to the principal. He deemed right away that he couldn't corroborate it. Now, I don't want anyone to think that I buck authority, that I knew that happened and I did something anyway. That wasn't the case. He had sent us an email and told us he'd be out of the building all day. So my responsibility at that point is to protect this girl. But also, by extension, to protect the boy. These kids don't make comments like that for no reason. It's not because he's a bad kid, and I never, ever approached him. But my thing was, I'm going to protect this girl. I went to him, to my kid. And she said it happened. He said, oh, I heard it, but I'm not sure. I didn't press him. I knew that he had said it, but I didn't press him. I then walked her out to the bus and asked the bus driver, who corroborated that she heard it. At that point, you have no choice. That's a terroristic threat. I don't care if they're seven-year-olds have shot up schools. You are mandated. That's the law. You have to report that. My principal decided that. Now, if I come to you and ask you, did you hear Johnny tell Phil down at Five Guys that he was going to shoot up the Five Guys? You're going to say no. So there's ways of to find out information. Okay, again, I'm street smart. I went and asked the bus driver because my thing was I'm putting this kid on the bus and I'm making sure the bus driver knows what went on and to make sure that this girl is kept safe, but also that this kid doesn't get himself in trouble. I waited for my principal to do something. He did nothing. I then contacted David Hoovler and said, David, I'm not walking away from this because what you're telling the little girl, if you can't corroborate it, is that she's a liar. I don't care that you may not believe that you're saying that, but that's what you're telling her. You're setting her up to be victimized for the rest of her life. She'll never tell an adult something again. I was that kid when I was little. I know what I'm talking about. I would never, ever do that to a kid, especially when I've corroborated it with two other people, including the adult that was on the bus. It was a smaller bus. I said, David, this needs to be dealt with. He never responded to me, but he sent police to both kids' houses to do wellness checks to make sure everything was okay. I don't know if a DASA report was filled out, a Dignity for All Act report that would have, it's textbook 101 case of a DASA complaint. I don't know.
Let me interrupt you a minute. After each of these incidents, is that when you got letters of reprimand or suspension?
The letters never stopped, Hank. They never stopped, so I can't. Yes, no. They've been ongoing for 7-8 years, so I can't tell you. Oh yeah, I definitely got one. They were ongoing 6-7 a year. Most teachers don't get one in 30 years of teaching.
And each one of these letters, did they delineate what the charges were about?
Yes. Sometimes I would have absolutely no idea what they were talking about. Other times was a complete misrepresentation of something. I'm still teaching up until now. Who knows where this is going. But over 7 years, with these myriad complaints of theirs, beginning with the original stuff, I've survived. So it couldn't have been too much because they've been trying to fire me. Literally, I'm not saying hypothetically. Literally, walked out of the building now 4 times. They've literally been trying to fire me. So they haven't gotten anything yet, and I'm beloved in the school. Beloved by the kids, so there's a disconnect somewhere. And I've reached out to every agency, not for protection, to end this. I was saying before that I've never recovered this summer from the abuse that I got last year. Probably it was more profound because I knew that I had such a successful year. So it made it even more egregious, I guess. I've never said that nor thought that, but it's what's coming to mind. I just never recovered. So now for them to hit me 5 minutes after I walk in the building, you can imagine.
Now,
Yep.
the teachers have a union,
Yes.
as they do in all districts.
Yep. Let me.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Let me go back to the other little girl. One of the things that should have happened after that is somebody should have been moved. Now, let me also say with this kid, I didn't have him the whole year. He was moved in because of problems in another class. Again, I'm not calling David Hoovler because some girl says that a boy pushed her and she scraped her knee, and I didn't see it happen. This is coming, and you can see the letter that I sent him. All of that's put in there. Okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. I'm not some wingnut conspiracy theorist looking to get back at the district. I've been portrayed by my own union members as just a disgruntled employee. You wait till you hear his story. Well, they've said that 7-8 years ago, and I'm still waiting to hear the story. So I'm not just some revenge-seeking lunatic. I don't want to be bothered with these people. But when things like this come up, I'm not looking the other way. The little girl was, again, my class and her class, you could see each other's class. They were never moved. Her and the boy, even after that, ate lunch together, were in the same halls together, went to the bathroom at the same time. Sometimes we're out at recess together. Nothing was changed. The principal, there was, again, no investigation, no suspension pending investigation like I've had. Never happened. He ended up getting tenure and nothing. Didn't spend 1 minute out of the building. I don't know that there's an investigation done. I have filed FOIA requests for all of the background on this because I want to see. Now I'm determined and dug in. I want to see every investigation, every DASA report that was written or not written. It's not 2015 anymore. It's now 2023, and I'm 8 years wiser, 8 years stronger, and I've been exemplary as a teacher for the last 8 years.
And when you've written to the state ed department with all of your issues,
yes,
what do they tell you?
Well, they never got back to me back in attendance. They reply to me now. They know they have to reply to me, but I never hear any resolution. I never hear I don't get copies of investigations. Nothing.
So is it just basically an acknowledgement of the letter that you sent them?
This past time, because I had to send a letter on a different matter about kids not getting their AIS service. What's in their a special ed kid has an individualized education plan that has to be followed. So in it says they're going to get AIS reading 4 times a week. They're going to get some type of math 3 times a week. That's a legal document that has to be followed. Ours were not being followed in my building, so I had to send to Chris Baer, our executive director of basically special education. Chris, I need your help. And then I subsequently sent that to the state. They called me. They asked for background information, but then I never heard from them again.
So it's 8 years of this. What do we do from now, from this point?
Follow the process one way or another. Can we go back and just talk a little bit about how this started? Because I think it's important for context. I was the girls' basketball coach. We're very successful, very awarded, successfully on the court, off the court. All my kids graduated. 99% of them went to college. I had girls playing in college, built the program up from nothing into something. We got a new athletic director, Jason Simo, who's now at Cornwall, and for whatever reason, he was not his cup of tea. For whatever reason, now, the whole attendance thing started because we weren't following attendance. This is following the first boys basketball attendance scandal. And, once I never had a kid play ineligibly. I crossed every T and dotted every I. No one could ever accuse me of not following the rules. But we had other coaches that weren't following the rules, but they were his friends, so nothing happened. So that's how it all started. Now, his second year there, which would have been my 6th year coaching, it was 2016, I'm sorry. 2015, 2016. He fired me from my coaching job after the 3rd game. Fired me. Because he said I tried to throw a girl. I pushed a girl and almost cracked her head open, throwing her into, a stanchion or whatever in the gym. Her parents were sitting directly across from us. He never went to the parents. He never spoke one word to the girl before he fired me. That's how this whole thing started. The parents went in ballistic, not against me. They're like, we were at the game. That didn't happen. She slipped. That didn't happen. So he was forced to put me back in, but that started the whole thing because now he was going to use we were successful. He picked apart everything I did, whatever. Flash forward, they try to not hire me. The next year, they're forced to hire me because the board won't let them not hire me. And I'm suspended again from my coaching job, but this time now I'm also suspended from my teaching job. I wasn't suspended from my teaching job the first time it happened. Back-to-back years, okay? They do an investigation, and the board smelled it, sniffed it out, and refused to go along with it. I was put back in as coach. I was put back in as a teacher. Now, you've had back-to-back years where you have obviously have concerns about me. They tried to fire me. The first time they tried to fire me from teaching, that's a whole other ridiculous story, but it was basically for threatening girls. It was clear. If they go to fire you from your teaching job, they clearly have issues with you. They're forced to put me back. I don't have an assistant coach at that time. There's somebody that's applied, that's qualified, that's certified. Mike McLemore, the director of human resources, and Roberto Padilla, the superintendent, don't hire an assistant. They put me back in this job after trying to fire me from my teaching job once and my coaching job twice, alone with the girls, except for when we had games. They would have somebody take the bus or be behind my bench during games. Well, practice is 85% of the time. Games are 15% of the time. It's also over the winter where you have Christmas break, where sometimes you're the only people in the whole school. There may be a janitor somewhere, but I'm alone with these 14 teenage girls that you have clearly said, by your actions, you have serious concerns about my being able to do the job, and you've tried to fire me for being abusive. You leave me alone with those girls.
Cross signals.
Cross signals, yeah. Well, it's either incompetence or it's trying to set me up. Because then they tried when I'm suspended now again from my teaching job and fired as the basketball coach for the third time, they read off 10 accusations of why they're from February. Then when we get to May, there's 10 charges. It's basically 5, but doubled. That I asked, and I have no problem talking about this in public because I never did anything wrong, and that was proven out. I asked the girl to sit on my lap. I screamed in the girl's face to change her effing shot or else. Threatening, racial charges. Sitting on the lap is obviously a sexual charge. 10 charges. So that's May 23rd. Padilla finally gets the board to go ahead with trying to fire me. A board has to approve whether or not you're going to move forward. Doesn't mean the teacher's fired if they're tenured. It just means it goes to the next step. That was May 23rd, 2017. 10 days later, David Shaw's daughter, David Shaw's the attorney for the district, was talking to my union lawyer about a settlement. 10 days. This is after they've been investigating me and starting to fire me for 2 years. 10 days. All those charges went away. What it ended up being was cursing at girls, which I had to agree to for 2 reasons. One, I don't trust going to court. It's a kangaroo court. And the other was I was already involved in the investigation with David, and I wasn't going to jeopardize that by fighting and, I would have had to bring in, possibly subpoena one of his investigators who I'd already been well into the investigation with. I wanted to see that through. So I had to agree to that. But it went from 10 highly, investigated by Michael McLemore with Ed Forget involved, among others, very serious charges, if they were true, were all whittled down within 10 days to that I cursed at girls, which there was a coach that they got on video, the baseball coach this year, doing the exact same thing, and he was never suspended from his teaching job. They did a quick investigation, and he was exonerated. I did less than that. They tried to fire me from my teaching job.
So going back to the Teachers Association, the union.
Yeah.
Are you satisfied
No.
with your representation?
No. I wouldn't let my head, the president, not the head, I would not let her come to this meeting yesterday. They kept trying to get her there. And I'm like, I don't want her here. She said, well, I've upheld your rights. I said, what about my rights as a human being? You haven't upheld those. Because there comes a point where everybody understands exactly what, this is bullying. And if they're going to bully an adult who's a grown man, who has name recognition in the community now, who's been on TV, is on radio, in the newspaper, on Hank Gross's website, so people know me, and who has a powerful union backing him, why would they not bully a kid if they needed to do it? They'll do it to me. Why wouldn't they do it to a kid?
To your knowledge, have they done anything like this with other teachers?
No.
No.
No, they have not. No. Again, I've gotten at least 40 of those. I don't have all of them. It's probably closer to 50. But 99% of teachers get one, maybe. Most get none. No one has gone through this. And it's now, again, it's 8 years. It's 4 suspensions. And based on their past, now, do I know that the superintendent knows this history? I don't, but she should. That's her job. So she may get blindsided by this. That's not my problem. It's not my job to educate people about what's going on. Do you think the people that have committed these indiscretions are going to be to speak about it and tell people about it, that would be suspending reality.
So now, as the process goes forward with this latest suspension, the charges for which you have no idea.
Correct.
The process is going to be, at some point, they will tell you the charges, I would imagine.
Oh, they're going to have to, yeah. If the board agrees to, if they decide that they're going to try and, they may come back and say it's unsubstantiated, go back to work the next day. If they finally get the board to approve it, get 5 votes to approve it, then they're going to have to, just like they did last time. I don't, Mr. Gross, want to sound cavalier about any of this. I'm not. I've been going through this for 8 years. I'm not going through it anymore. If they decide they want to fire me and they make up something and I have no backing, so be it. I'm not backing off because worried about that eventuality. They've already done this. If they're allowed to get away with this, then we don't have an educational system. We don't have a society. Because if you're attacking the person who is defending small children and you're cooking up charges, and I don't say that this is documented. This is documented. I just went through the whole thing. You don't have an education system, so what does it matter if I'm fired or not? I cannot live like this anymore. Bullying has an effect that I can't even put into words. Again, I had to take time off because of post-traumatic stress disorder, and they started attacking me as soon as I got back. And I'm not saying PTSD that I looked up on, WebMD. I'm talking about documented by a psychiatrist that I had to go to because of the bullying, the harassment. So I'm out, and they attack me and send me for a medical test when I wasn't out on medical leave. It makes absolutely no sense. The woman investigating my most recent hostile work environment, when this was a year and a half ago, almost probably 2 years ago. She said, I want to go back to this medical thing. Why did they do that? I said, I can't, because I go and sit in front of a doctor. I'm out because I have post-traumatic stress disorder. They send me for a physical test, for a medical test. The doctor keeps looking at me like, why are you here? Doc, I didn't schedule this appointment. This was done by someone else. He's like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Why are you here? This is what's going on.
Mr. D, you have any final thoughts? Because we're out of time now.
Yeah, I thank you so much. I've wanted to do this for the longest time because it's a 5-second blurb, a small, I've been on TV, I've been on News 12, I've been on your station. I've never explained things like this. I want the public to hear this. Not because I'm I'm not defending myself. I don't need defending. I want the public to hear what goes on. Okay? I am never going to walk away from a kid who needs me. I spend more time and energy on kids that aren't even my own students, who've never been my students, than sometimes I do with my own. And I give everything to my own. So that's not going to change. It's not going to change. And however this shakes out, I'll go with God, and I'll put my truth up against their truth any day of the week. But we're going to do it in public. I'm not doing it behind closed doors. We're going to do it like this.